I just wanted to caution you that if you ever get hung up on thoughts of, geez, I'm too old to learn how to do this, that, or the other thing, whatever it is you want to accomplish in music that you haven't yet, and you feel like you've been playing a while, and by now I should be able to do this, that, or the other thing. I'm cautioning you to not allow those thoughts to burden you, and actually urge you to let them go. For an extreme example, I had a friend who, in his early 90s, put out his first album since 1958, and it ended up garnering enough acclaim that it reached the attention of Jazz at Lincoln Center, and a concert was planned. The only reason it didn't happen, unfortunately, was because of the pandemic, um, which came not too many months after its release. But nevertheless, he had enough attention that he was getting calls from jazz radio stations and interviewers who wanted to talk to him. And one radio interview said to him, let's just talk about your jazz career. Tell us about it. And Vinny chuckled and said, well, my jazz career involved Mondays at my house. I was busy making a living. What Vinny did primarily, he was a society and club day musician of the old school, where he could sit down with four other saxophone players and he could play first alto or third alto, as they used to call it, and any number of thousands of tunes at the drop of a hat, which now, of course, is a lost art. But maybe because he came from that world, he was obsessed with harmony and voicings and voice leading and whatnot, and was endlessly fascinated by the different things that he could try and do. And over the course of 50 or 60 years, he had written stacks of arrangements. Some things were of originals, some things were on standard repertoire, some other things were on jazz repertoire. In any case, for those 3 CDs that he put out, in his 90s, he got his favorite musicians together and had them record his music for him. He had stopped playing by that point. Although he continued to have those sessions at his house on Mondays, and he would play piano. In fact, I remember once calling him about a year or two before he died, and I said I was going to do a show of Hoagy Carmichael's music, called Stardust Road, by the way. If it ever comes to you, check it out. It's pretty cool. And he says, are you doing was it Stardust? No, Skylark. And he says, I got a great set of changes on Skylark. You ready? And he started rattling them off as the way we might do if our favorite joke, or if you're a sports fan, the statistics of your favorite player. Unfortunately, I couldn't write that fast, so I hope they're written down somewhere. Anyway, point being, even though Vinny was out busy making a living, which happens to a lot of us in the music business, he found time for his creative pursuits, and eventually the truth will out, as they say, right? And they garnered attention. Now, if there are things that you want to do and you're having some trouble, there's no shame in looking for help either. Again, if you can lose that mentality, if you can get your ego out of the way, which is hard. I'm not accusing anyone of anything, but it takes a lot to step up and say, let's say if you're 30, 40 years old, or even just out of college, and saying, geez, by now I thought I could do this and I can't. There's nothing wrong with looking for help. In my late 20s, I was pushing 30, and I still felt I wasn't quite ready for prime time. So I called up a musician whose name I'd heard through the grapevine, but had been seeing on records forever, named Harvey Estrin. And I'd said, he's never met me, he's never heard of me. And I called him and asked him, would he be willing to do an assessment? Did he even teach? And he said, sure, come on down. So I was working at Busch Gardens at the time in Virginia, so I made an appointment for when I'd be back in New York. And I went to see him, and he said, very cut and dry, this is what you do well. This is where your training really shows. Here's where your weaknesses are. And he proceeded to list them. And he said, look, what you really need to do to fix those things is to study some more. He goes, study with whoever you want. I don't care. I'll be glad to help you. I'll be glad to work with you. I think you can do it. How old are you? And I said, well, I'm just turned 20. Well, I was just turned 29. He said, okay, so you're still pretty young, which shocked me because, it was the oldest I'd ever been, so it seemed kind of old to me. And he said, just don't try to do it alone. He said that's hard, and you really need another set of ears, and you need someone who's been there, done that. So I would encourage you to seek that person out. And by the way, I'm around. Someday I hope to form a whole group of folks who would like to continue their studies. But I'm not here to sell you on anything. I'm just putting it out there. If you need anything, I am around. Just if you want to just chat. Okay, if I can figure it out, I'll put some of the links to some of Vinny's music in the links. And also some of the things he did with Lou Anderson's big band, which eventually evolved into the Birdland All Stars that we know today, but existed for decades prior to that. Um, so anyway, that's my little pep talk today. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to keep pursuing. That's what keeps us young, even into your 90s. Vinny never lost his enthusiasm, and that's why he left this world. He died well. You know, he was simply time. Alrighty, but it's time for me to go to sleep, so I'm gonna leave it here.